So many projects, so little time. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic. If you are new here, welcome to my little corner of the internet. What I like to do is a variety of artsy things. And today, instead of having one very structured project, I've got 3 mini projects for you. I have a tendency of just doing these little things on the side anyways, and so I thought for once, let me try to capture them, and then I can make just a little conglomerate video of all of them. The first one, or actually, I don't know the order I'm going to put them in, but unfortunately I don't have the before to show off now to then go do the project because I've already done all of them. I'm starting a little herb garden. I'll have some cute video of it. But I have a watering can. My boyfriend bought me a plain white watering can, and that just will not do. So I decided to paint it. So that's one of the things that I've got. The second one is I have been collecting a lot more earrings recently. I should have put some on for the sake of this, but these are my dailies. They're just 2 different sets of black studs. But I do enjoy larger earrings, and I've been enjoying them more and more. I'm slowly finding my style over time, and it's been really fun to collect earrings that speak more to that fun alternative style than what I've had in the past. So I've got too many of them, so I had to make myself a new earring rack, so that's some fun DIY. I purchased nothing additional for that. The only additional thing I purchased for anything in this video was the t-shirt. My boyfriend and I were at Marshall's, and I happened across a bright, garish, beautiful Hawaiian shirt. It's made out of it's supposed to be a golf shirt, so it's an athletic material. And I had the unhinged idea of the dog needs a Hawaiian shirt. So the dog's getting a Hawaiian shirt, and it's freaking adorable. He doesn't really like it, and also you can tell it wasn't made for a dog because I didn't seam rip it apart and then piece it back together like it's for a dog. I kind of mimicked what I did in my Halloween costume video, which I'll put a tag up there. I made him a cow for Halloween last year. I just kind of pieced together and restitched some of the excess fabric in such a way that it'll tailor fit him a little bit better. So hopefully it doesn't look quite as much like a human shirt. I think it's really cute. It's got a little collar on it. I plan to take pictures of him with sunglasses and have those in the video. But the whole point of today is just casual, quick. Here's 3 projects I did recently that I thought would be kind of fun to share. Nothing that I would usually consider to be video projects, but maybe if I start conglomerating them together, I can show off more of the smaller DIY stuff that I do around the house or around my apartment anyways, and turn those into videos, because I think they're pretty fun. There is nothing more satisfying or more interesting than being like, I want to make something today, and then just finding the stuff in your house to do it. I think that's pretty fun and pretty neat to do. Thanks, Mom, for that ability to turn anything into something. It has served me very well. So all of that said, without further ado, let's get into these 3 little crafts. And for those who know my dog, there is a lot of him in this video, so I hope you enjoy. This is also totally random and out of place, and just a little addition to this intro. The very unamused Domino and I just wanted to say thank you for 100 subscribers. Mwah. I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is just basically a catalog of all of my fun passion projects that I do anyways, and just a new way to share them with originally friends and family, but I'm happy to share them with anyone who decides to watch. He usually looks a little bit happier than this. Hi, Bubby. You got anything to say? Anyways, thank you so much.
So first project up is the watering can, and I want to apologize if the audio sounds a little wonky. I am recording from a new location, so I apologize if there's an echo. But the purpose behind this watering can was I wanted to start a little herb garden. I decided to start a journal and set a few goals for myself for this year, and one of them was have an herb garden. I've just always thought that having a little herb garden in the kitchen would be the cutest thing. I made this little 3-tier wooden box thing a while ago, so I already had something decorated for flowers and herbs, and now I just needed to fill it. So I decided to decorate this watering can in the same theme, and I chose 4 different flowers from the herbs that I'm actually growing. So the first one that I did was lavender, because lavender is really easy. I just did these as 3 small brush strokes, essentially, to kind of form each individual flower, and then clustered them as lavender. The second flower that I chose to do are called bachelor button. They're not an herb, they're just these really pretty little blue flowers that I decided to grow for some reason. The third flower I decided to do was mustard, which was very hard to find a decent reference image of, because there's apparently a lot of different ways people like to do mustard. And the last one I chose to do is thyme. I also included a bumblebee and a butterfly in it because why not? It's very cute. I was basically trying to go for a very abstract but still structured look to these flowers, also because the surface of this watering can is dented, divoted, so getting a straight line is very, very hard. So I just kind of went with the flow, so to speak. These were kind of inspired by how my mom draws flowers. Very quick brush strokes, just getting the overall shape and color of the flower, but not really caring too much about those finer details until the very end, which I never went back in for the finer details, but I still really like how they came out. Something I did make an effort to do to give these very simply drawn flowers a little bit more dimension is I tried to make sure every one included at least 2 different colors. So the lavender had a light and a dark purple, the bachelor button had a more intense blue and a darker blue, the mustard has a bright yellow and more of an orange, and the thyme has more pinkish ones, more purple ones. The thyme was a very hard color to get right, but in the end I think the variations in all of the different flowers made it work so good. And I basically did this by just having the 2 different colors and then kind of switching between them, mixing them a little bit in between. So like every flower was not just one or the other. Some of them were kind of half and half or a variety of the 2. And I think it added a little bit of dimension to these otherwise very, very simple flowers. My favorite one ended up being Thyme, which is the very last flower that I did. The leaves were just different. I think it's because it's just so different. The stem is brown, the leaves are these big green ones. It has a lot of character to it. But once I was done with everything, I decided there were some gaps at the bottom, so I just filled those in with little flicks of grass to just kind of like finish it out. And then the very last thing, because this is acrylic painted on metal and I don't know how well that's going to last, I decided to cover the whole thing in Mod Podge. I chose a glossy one because the watering can was already glossy to begin with, so I wanted to make it and keep it glossy. But that was the last thing I did, and then I set it to dry, and now I have a little herb-themed watering can. So the next project might be just out of nowhere for some people, and I decided to make myself a new earring holder or earring display. This is specifically for dangle earrings that have the hooks. If they are posts, this is not going to work for them. But I have made myself one in the past, and it was just made out of some skewers and hot glue and had some very brightly wrapped yarn around it. I don't know, I was working with what I had, but I've run out of space on it, so I needed to make myself a new one, and I was determined to not buy anything new for this. So I found some leftover square rods. These had been purchased for the Armorer cosplay as part of what I stuck in the hammer to keep it stable, but instead I used 2 of those as the posts, and then the crossbars are chopsticks. However, I needed to modify the chopsticks a little bit, so I first marked the ends with the scissors as far as where I wanted to make my cut, and then I took my little saw and I sawed off the ends of all of the chopsticks, and then I flipped it to the front and tried to find about the point where the taper seemed to stop so that I would have just a cylinder of the same length. Marked that again with the scissors, and then proceeded to saw those off as well. I sanded both of those ends down, and then they were ready for use. So I decided to make the rungs of this little ladder about, I think it was 2 inches apart, an inch from the top and bottom, and then 2 inches apart. I have a lot of very tall earrings, and so this was kind of a minimum requirement. In reality, I think I probably should have spaced them out a little bit more, but this ended up working out. Once it was all marked out, I kind of just went for it with the hot glue, putting a dab down, and then making sure that the dowels or chopsticks were rotated so the cylinder side, the skinniest side, was up or vertical, because that's the way I needed the earrings to be able to hook over them. And then I just attached the other side, hot glue on top. Probably could have taken a little bit more care with this step, but it's fine. It's just for earrings. It doesn't need to be really structurally sound. And once all the hot glue was dried, I just painted the entire thing black. I wanted it to look a little bit sleeker than the last one that I had, so black paint it is. Once the entire thing was painted, I realized I needed it to stick out of the wall a little bit, so I actually took those ends that I'd cut off the chopsticks earlier, sanded those down, and then glued those to the corners of this board to kind of act as like little peg feet away from the wall. Hot glued those nice and in place, painted those black as well, and the last thing I did for those is I put a little bit of hot glue on each of the tops to kind of serve as bumpers, so no wood is actually touching the wall. It had a little hot glue bumper. And this thing is almost ready. One of the things I discovered that I liked from the last time I did it is I put a bead of hot glue across the top rung, and that way the earrings don't slide around and they stick very, very well. So I did that, and then it needs a way to hang. So I have this leftover gray yarn from a shawl that I was working on. So I folded it over a few times, glued it across the top, and now it hangs. I decided to film the process of switching out all of the earrings because I think it's kind of fun. And here it is getting populated. I'm really happy with it. I think it looks a whole lot cleaner than my last one. And now I've got a little bit more room to, peruse some craft fairs. So the next project, for some reason, I really want to make a Hawaiian shirt for the dog. I saw one for a small dog when I was at Marshall's, and I couldn't find one for a big dog, but I found this adult men's shirt. It's a medium. It's got a pretty wide neck hole. It's this adorable pattern with all of these flamingos, and I have a sewing machine, so I'm gonna tailor this to the dog. Please enjoy this sped up clip of me putting the shirt on Domino for the first time. What I was doing is figuring out where all of the extra bunching of fabric was so that I could mark those seams with a Sharpie on both sides so I knew where to tailor it later so that I can sew it so that it fits him. So the markings I tried to make are related to things I learned from when I made him a cow costume. And that's the biggest thing you have to adjust for is their armpits kind of work differently. So I'm probably going to use the more forgiving markings just to make it a little bit bigger. But this is kind of where the edges of his chest fall. And then this is where his armpit falls. So this is where the armpit cut actually needs to be versus here. So basically I'm going to bring those 2 points together. And then these were intended to mark kind of like where his center belly is. So I'm probably going to be a little bit more forgiving and make it a little bit longer. I also have some marks here that these two on the sleeves are kind of to define the narrowing of his legs. Again, I don't want to make it super narrow around his legs, and it's still going to be a little baggy and weird because it's a human shirt for a dog. But basically the idea is bring these two together to make a more narrow sleeve, bring these two together to redefine how the chest works, and then basically, figure out where the middle point is. I'm hoping because of this neck hole that I don't actually have to cut it down the middle and that I can keep it as just a pull over his head. That would be ideal. So I don't want to make any of this too tight. I want to make sure I can still pull it over his head and get it on his legs. So that's why I don't want to make this too tight. That's why I don't make that too tight. So I'm probably going to do this seam first because that's one of the easiest ones, and then I'll figure out how I want to narrow the sleeves. So the measurements on each side were not exact and were a little uneven because I measured them on a dog that was wiggling. So I wanted to try to standardize those measurements, especially for the front of his chest, because I wanted that to try to look as clean as possible. So I took the most forgiving measurements, measured it, and then made some approximations on either side to try to draw that seam all the way down. I did that for the chest seam and then also the kind of armpit leg holes, because one side was a lot more defined than the other. Once I had that, I used a needle and thread and I did a basting stitch across that seam because I wanted to try to test it on the dog, but I am not going to put pins, on a garment and then try to put it on my dog. That is not going to be a good idea. So I pinned the seams together first and then took a basting thread, which basically just means you make large stitches to hold pieces of fabric together, and then, cut the needle off. So it was just very loosely stitched together, fit that on him again, so that I could fit that on him again and see if it was going to work. Once I concluded that it was going to work, I just decided to go ahead and sew it. I was pretty confident in these, chest measurements anyways. This fabric was a little annoying to work with because it is kind of stretchy and it's a very slippery material. So the seams aren't the best, but again, also it's for a dog, so I'm not necessarily concerned about being the peak level of efficiency or correctness with my stitches. It just needs to be secure enough that it's not going to fall apart.
Here, get up. Oh my goodness, Domino, come here. Come here. Oh, come here. You are a handsome boy. Yes, huff at your mother. Huff at your mother for dressing you in stupid clothes. Oh my goodness. The front looks so good, baby. That actually looks almost tailored to you. Hi, Buffy. Come here. Mama's okay. Yes, you are the goodest. You are the goodest boy. You are the goodest. You are the goodest boy.
Once I confirmed that the front was tailored how I wanted, I was able to kind of figure out where the armpits were and determine whether or not my measurements were accurate. And they were. So I pretty much just sewed a straight line down, narrowing the armhole for him, and I wasn't as concerned with the fact that the edges weren't going to match up because I was just going to re-roll the sleeve up and hem it again anyways. This one was pretty straightforward, especially because I did the chest seam first. It honestly made narrowing the arms that much easier because I could tell where the fabric was going to bunch after the chest seam was already in place. The only thing left was to figure out how much of the center fabric needed to be cut away so that it fit his chest.
Domino, come here. What are you doing?
So I didn't film sewing the center seam, but the very last thing is I need to just trim however much off the end of this shirt. So those center seams are in place. I did not do one, I did two, mimicking how I did the chest before. So I just cut an arbitrary amount off the back, and the last thing to do was trim up the extra fabric away from the inside of the shirt. That wasn't really necessary, but again, this fabric doesn't fray, so as long as the seam holds in place, I have no concerns about the structural integrity of this shirt. And I just didn't want it to be any more baggy than it was already going to be.
Okay, so this is the final test, I think, because I've made all my edits. Hi, baby. Oh, you are the goodest boy.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. If you walk away, I can't put the shirt on. Sitting down is mildly helpful. And let's button up some of those buttons so you look all nice and handsome.
You are the cutest thing.
Hold on, show the camera. Come here. Come here, Domino. Hi, baby. Sit, sit, sit.
You're still not showing the camera, but that's fine. So the dog has a shirt now.
Hi, hold on. Come here. And now turn this way. Turn this way and sit. Sit. No, that's a stretch. That is what Mom did. That's a high.
This might be one of my favorite stupid projects I've ever done. Is it baggy? Yes. Is it perfect? No.
Do you have a shirt now? Yes, you do. Hi, big boy. You look so handsome.
Sit. Sit.
Get up and sit. Sit. No, you're...
Oh, I've riled him up. It's playtime now. Oh, so I think I'm gonna cut... another 4 inches off the bottom just because this is where it seems to naturally want to sit on him anyways. I don't want it super long. So once I do that, that'll definitely be the final cut. Now I just have to get him unriled up so I can take it off of him. Domino.
Hi.
Come here.
Can I have...
Oh,
upside down playtime. Upside down playtime. Yeah. Can I have it? Drop it. Drop it. Hi. Stay. Stay. Oh, big huff. Hold on. That was my plan. That was my ploy. I got you to sit. Now.
Mom was taking your foot the wrong way. Mom doesn't know what she's doing.
Okay. And hold on. Hold on. And go get it.